For decades, researchers have been trying to communicate with Bigfoot.
Hiker Nathan Gray and a friend are armed with cameras and drones to document their trek through the woods. A creature, large and humanoid, walking through the trees unbothered by or unaware of their presence.
On the night of January 27th, 2018, something unusual occurred in Olympic National Park, Washington. Seismic instruments picked up what seemed like a small earthquake near Lake Quinault. As daylight broke, park rangers went to investigate the area and discovered a chaotic scene with many large trees toppled over or snapped. What could have caused such a sudden and powerful impact? Let's delve into this mystery and explore the possible explanations for this strange event. The day the trees fell apart. Field researcher Cliff Barackman pointed out how shocking the sight was. Trees that had trunks as thick as 4 or 5 feet were snapped in half. The pieces of wood scattered around were as big as the wooden boards you see at a construction site. It was a scene of complete chaos, spread out over nearly half a mile. This event quickly grabbed the attention of the local community. The first guess many had was that some freak weather event had caused it. Maybe a sudden, powerful storm had hit the area. As photos of the destroyed forest spread online, a wilder theory started to get popular. Some people thought maybe the Sasquatch, also known as Bigfoot, had done this. The Sasquatch is this legendary creature that's supposed to be roaming these woods, and according to some, it's big and strong enough to rip up trees. This idea comes from old stories, and some people think Bigfoot might destroy trees to show off its strength or to mark its territory. This theory isn't just out of nowhere. Back in 1924, there were gold prospectors at Mount St. Helens who claimed they ran into a group of huge, ape-like creatures. They said these creatures got so mad that they attacked the prospector's cabin all night long, throwing stones and shaking the place up. So maybe, just maybe, these huge creatures were back, making a statement. But according to Cliff Barackman, seeing Bigfoot this mad would be something totally new. Olympic National Park has always been a place filled with strange tales and events. There's even a story about the Lady of the Lake, a ghost of a young woman whose body was found floating in Lake Crescent long after she vanished. Are these happenings supernatural, or can they be explained by natural causes? It's a big question for everyone. Despite the intriguing Bigfoot theory, experts like anthropology professor Jeff Meldrum are pretty skeptical. He believes that if Bigfoot were real, it would be more about conserving energy and wouldn't waste effort just knocking down trees without a good reason. Meteorologist Juan Hernandez added to the debate by discussing the weather conditions on that day. He explained that the pattern of the fallen trees didn't match what you'd expect from a microburst, a type of intense storm that wasn't even recorded by weather radars at the time. Also, the direction the trees fell didn't line up with how the winds were blowing, which made the weather theory hard to support. In the end, figuring out what really happened that night in Olympic National Park might come down to some rare and odd natural occurrence, something not well understood like rotor circulations, which are strange wind patterns that can happen in mountainous regions. This event left everyone with more questions than answers, and it continues to be a topic of interest and speculation among the locals and those fascinated by the park's many unexplained events. Rotor circulation is a kind of wind pattern that can get really wild near mountains. Imagine this: when regular, smooth air hits a mountain, it's forced to climb up one side and then roll down the other side. This creates a spin in the air, known as a rotor. This spinning air can change direction quickly and make the wind very choppy and unpredictable. Meteorologist Juan Hernandez believes this spinning wind is what knocked down a whole bunch of trees in Olympic National Park so hard that it looked like an earthquake had hit on the monitors. Hernandez pointed out that the perfect conditions were there for rotor circulation to happen. There was stable air sitting on top of the mountain peak, which forced any wind that came up the mountain to drop back down sharply. This dropping wind likely started to spin in the valley where the trees were knocked over. Everything lined up just right for this natural phenomenon to take place. Just as we start to figure out one thing, another interesting event pops up, pulling us into another exciting story. Unusual lights over the mountains. This explanation seems pretty solid, suggesting a powerful natural event caused the tree damage. But the quest for evidence of Bigfoot keeps going. In another interesting event, back in July 2016, in Pisgah National Forest in North Carolina, something unusual was caught on camera. Dr. Dan Caton, an astrophysicist, had set up 2 special cameras to watch over the Brown Mountain Ridge at night. These cameras picked up weird white lights that flickered above the mountain ridge, completely different from any ordinary streetlights, showing up several times over a span of about 20 minutes. These strange lights have been part of the local talk for a long time. The first time they were mentioned in a newspaper was back in 1912. After that, more people started noticing them, especially around a popular hotel in the mountains. By the 1920s, there were so many reports about these lights that the U.S. Geological Survey decided to look into them. People have come up with all sorts of ideas about what these lights could be. Some think they might be ball lightning, which is a weird kind of lightning that forms a glowing ball instead of a flash. It hangs around in the air for a bit instead of zapping quickly to the ground. Others think maybe the lights are something spookier, like ghosts of Civil War soldiers still roaming the mountains. At one point, people thought the lights were just reflections from train headlights. But that idea didn't hold up after a big flood washed away the train tracks in 1916. Yet the lights kept appearing. Despite all the discussions and investigations, the lights are still a big topic of curiosity. Dr. Matthew Zadagas, a physicist, has been trying to figure out if ball lightning could be the explanation. But he's finding it tough because the usual physics rules, called Maxwell's equations, don't really explain how ball lightning works. This makes the lights a lingering and fascinating topic for both scientists and anyone intrigued by unusual natural events. Will the experts ever get a clear answer on what's really going on with these strange lights at Brown Mountain? The ongoing efforts to understand these lights continue to draw interest and provoke thought among many who are keen on solving natural riddles. In the 1860s, a Scottish physicist and mathematician named James Clerk Maxwell formulated some complex mathematical equations. These equations suggest that the electric charge of ball lightning would be too large for it to move as it has been observed. This raises the question, could the strange lights we see actually be from an airplane? From what's been observed, when the light appears, it doesn't behave like a plane. Planes have blinking lights and create a stretched line as they move. Instead, we see a glowing, hovering sphere that doesn't fit with what we know about how airplanes move through the sky. We've also discussed the possibility of these lights being reflections from the ground, similar to a situation we've mentioned before with a Turkish UFO. This effect happens when colder air lies under warmer air, causing the light to bend downward and making objects appear higher than they actually are. Despite this explanation, these lights show up well above where such effects typically happen, making it unlikely. Given how often we see these lights, we've decided this explanation doesn't fit, and the cause of the Brown Mountain lights remains unresolved. We hope that with more research, we'll eventually figure it out. In March 2021, park rangers in Denali National Park and Preserve, Alaska, came across something unusual: strange footprints on the ice. These prints seem to sit on top of the ice rather than being pressed into it. The footprints were speculated to be between 16 and 18 inches long, with about 3 feet between each one, which piqued the interest of many. Cliff Barackman, who runs the North American Bigfoot Center, is familiar with weird footprints. He noticed that these footprints rose above the ground, which is not common. This suggests they could have been made by something walking on 2 legs, not 4. This has led many to think that these tracks might indicate the presence of a Yeti. With one question partly answered, we find ourselves facing another fascinating story, ready to be explored. Footprints on the frozen ground. There are many stories and some evidence to suggest that a creature like Sasquatch could live in places as harsh as Alaska. The people native to the Himalayas have their own legends of a creature they call the Yeti, which is similar to what Alaskan natives call Nantinak, meaning half man, half beast. One event in Alaska involved hunters who followed a moose they had shot. They found a trail of blood and 18-inch long footprints, but the moose was gone, hinting that something large had taken it away. While some think these prints might belong to a huge, wolf-like creature, dire wolves, the largest dogs from the Pleistocene era, have been extinct for a long time. However, a rancher in Montana, claimed to have encountered and eliminated one, though it turned out to be just a large gray wolf. Could these be remnants from the Ice Age, wandering through Denali National Park? Dire wolves were known to weigh up to 200 pounds and could grow up to 6 feet long. They share more genetic similarities with today's African jackals than with modern gray wolves. But the true identity of what left those prints in the snow is still a topic of discussion. Is it a dire wolf or Bigfoot? Some talk to biologist Floyd Hayes to see if these prints could have been made by a known animal like a bear. Hayes mentioned that this is unlikely, especially in March when bears are typically hibernating. He observed that the footprints looked more like those of canids, dogs from the family Canidae, which usually show 4 toes, unlike the 5 toes seen in bear tracks. Hayes explained that in dogs, the placement of the hind feet often matches where the front feet were, creating a line of offset tracks. This could explain why the prints seem to be made by something walking on 2 legs. So, could these be the footprints of a long-gone dire wolf? Hayes noted that dire wolves once preyed on large grazing mammals, but when those animals went extinct, the wolves didn't have enough food and eventually disappeared too. Yet, the question of these strange Alaskan footprints continues to be a topic of conversation and investigation. Could it be a dire wolf that somehow survived all these years, or is it something else entirely, like a Bigfoot? This ongoing curiosity keeps experts and enthusiasts alike searching for answers. This exploration into the unexplained phenomena, from ball lightning that doesn't behave as expected to unidentifiable footprints in the snow, captures our imagination and drives the pursuit of knowledge. Whether it's physics confusing over the behaviors of light or biologists and enthusiasts trying to track down the creators of strange footprints, the quest for understanding continues to lead us to fascinating discoveries and discussions about our world and its many unsolved phenomena. James Clerk Maxwell, a Scottish scientist from the 1860s, came up with some pretty complex equations. These equations suggest that the electrical charge of ball lightning is way too big for it to move the way we see it moving. This raises a question. Are the weird lights we sometimes see actually from an airplane? From observations, when this light shows up, it doesn't look like a plane at all. Planes have blinking lights and leave a long trail as they move through the sky. But what we see is a glowing, hovering sphere, which doesn't match how airplanes behave. We've also tossed around the idea that these lights could just be reflections bouncing off the ground. This theory is similar to one involving a light phenomenon we heard about in Turkey. It happens when colder air sits below warmer air, bending the light downward and making objects appear higher than they really are. Despite this theory, the fact that these lights appear much higher than where such atmospheric effects typically happen makes it seem unlikely. Considering how often we see these lights, we've decided this theory doesn't really fit. The cause of the Brown Mountain lights remains unsolved. We hope that more research will someday give us some answers. In March 2021, park rangers at Denali National Park and Preserve in Alaska came across something unusual, strange footprints on the ice. These prints seemed to be sitting on top of the ice rather than pressed into it. They were estimated to be between 16 and 18 inches long, with about 3 feet between each one. This caught the attention of many people. As we think about the strange things in our world, new discoveries call to us, inviting us to look deeper into the unexplained. The tale of the Alaskan creature. Cliff Barackman, who heads the North American Bigfoot Center, knows a lot about odd footprints. He noted that these footprints stick up from the ground, which is unusual. This suggests they could have been made by something walking on 2 legs, leading many to think these tracks might be a sign of a yeti. There are plenty of tales and some evidence suggesting that a creature similar to Sasquatch could survive in the tough Alaskan climate. The indigenous people of the Himalayas have their own stories of a creature they call the Yeti, similar to what Alaskan natives call Nantinak, meaning half man, half beast. In one event in Alaska, hunters followed a moose they had shot. They tracked a blood trail and found 18-inch long footprints, but no moose. It seemed like something large had taken it, possibly something they couldn't explain. The hunters were left confused and unnerved, wondering what could have been capable of such a feat. While some believe these prints might belong to a huge wolf-like animal, dire wolves, The biggest dogs from the Pleistocene era have been extinct for a long time. However, a rancher in Montana claimed to have encountered and eliminated one, though it was later proven to be just a large gray wolf. Could these be traces from the Ice Age, still roaming through Denali National Park? Dire wolves, known to weigh up to 200 pounds and grow up to 6 feet long, share more genetic similarities with today's African jackals than with modern gray wolves. But the real source of the prints remains a topic of debate. Is it a dire wolf or Bigfoot? Some asked biologist Floyd Hayes to check if these prints could be from a known animal like a bear. Hayes pointed out that this was unlikely, especially in March when bears usually hibernate. He observed that the footprints looked more like those of canids, dogs from the Canidae family, which typically show 4 toes, unlike the 5 toes seen in bear tracks. Hayes explained that in dogs, the hind feet often land where the front feet were, creating a line of slightly offset tracks. This could explain why the prints seem to be made by something walking on 2 legs. So, could these be the footprints of a long-gone dire wolf? Hayes mentioned that dire wolves used to hunt large grazing mammals, but when those animals went extinct, the wolves didn't have enough food and eventually died out too. Yet, the question of these intriguing Alaskan footprints continues to spark discussion and investigation. Could it be a dire wolf that has somehow survived all these years, or perhaps something else entirely, like a Bigfoot? This ongoing curiosity keeps experts and enthusiasts alike looking for answers. This deep dive into unexplained phenomena, from ball lightning that behaves in unexpected ways to unidentifiable footprints in the snow, captures our imagination and pushes the pursuit of knowledge. Whether it's physicists trying to understand the behaviors of light or biologists and enthusiasts trying to track down the creators of strange footprints, the quest for understanding continues to lead us to fascinating discoveries and discussions about our world and its many unresolved phenomena. The appeal of the unexplained draws both experts and the public alike, fostering a sense of wonder and a desire to explore the unknown. These investigations remind us of the vastness of our world and the many things that remain beyond our current understanding. As we push the boundaries of science and exploration, we not only uncover more about the phenomena themselves, but also about the natural world and potentially about our own place within it. This ongoing exploration, spurred by curiosity and a quest for truth, keeps us engaged in a world that is full of surprises and challenges our perceptions. It's a reminder that our planet holds many stories yet to be understood, each beckoning with the promise of new knowledge, and perhaps one day, a resolution to the riddles that nature poses. The dialogue between the known and the unknown continues to inspire and drive the scientific community and curious minds everywhere to keep searching, keep questioning, and keep exploring. Could the strange event in Olympic National Park be more than just a natural occurrence? Could it be evidence of something unknown or even a confidential government experiment? Share your thoughts in the comments below and let us know what you think. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more.